And welcome to a quick discussion of Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity. This is a prequel spin-off to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and is also currently one of my most anticipated games. I've been playing the demo quite a bit lately, and I wanted to give my overall thoughts on it so far, and also express some concerns for the final game. First of all, I actually really like this menu system. So instead of the bizarre menu from the original Hyrule Warriors, a lot of things are integrated into the world map of Breath of the Wild itself, including shops, and unlocking combos and extra hearts for characters. It's a really elegant way to get across the same idea of basically going into a menu and leveling up characters, but in a way that really captures the style of Breath of the Wild. But with that being said, let's see how the game actually plays. So for this video, I am going to show off the first level because it is definitely the most talked about aspect of this demo. Because I've already played this mission a few times, we can play as Zelda as well, but we are going to stick with the default characters of Link and Impa for this playthrough. So let's see how it is. In terms of capturing the style of Breath of the Wild, I also really like these loading screens. It's a really minor thing, but the presentation really matters a lot to me because of how unique Breath of the Wild appears. So capturing that essence is really important for a prequel like this, and I feel like they really nailed it. Like, it is pretty much spot on despite being a spin-off. Like, Hyrule Warriors has a very unique visual identity, but this very much feels like Breath of the Wild. Alright, so this is the first level, and one of the worst first impressions for a game, probably, in some ways. Visually, I think it looks really great. In terms of controls, it's very similar to the original Hyrule Warriors, so you have light and heavy attacks that can combo into each other, like so. The goal is to just basically cut down hordes of enemies, pretty effortlessly, and thus it's still fun if you like Warriors games, if you liked Hyrule Warriors. The main issue is the frame rate. I think they might have gone a little bit overboard with how pretty this game looks, because it comes at the cost of the performance. I don't even think it's too awful. I have definitely seen worse games lately, but I do think it's a bit disappointing for the big holiday title for the Nintendo Switch, and basically the latest installment of the Zelda series, to have such unpolished performance at launch. I'm hoping they'll be able to fix it over time, or even by launch, but as of now, this demo is pretty rough. Weirdly enough, this level is the worst performing, and I assume it's because of all this grass. Some of the other levels don't have as much grass, and thus the frame rate actually stays a lot more stable. Even then, I do feel like some of the claims I've seen online are a bit exaggerated. The frame rate can really tank, specifically when using special moves, but that's not really a part of the game that's controlled, so I don't really feel like it gets in the way other than looking really awkward. In terms of actual gameplay, I feel like it's not too horrible, but it is definitely below 30 FPS quite a bit. So yeah, I find it perfectly manageable, but it's definitely not ideal, and doesn't really make a solid first impression. When the first area of the game is really laggy, it does make you worry about how the performance will be later on. So yeah, it's still fun. So another cool thing is, using certain attacks, you can launch into the air like so, and then switch to the paraglider, which is neat. So the Flurry Rush is included, as is shield parrying. This is a weak point smash like in the original Hyrule Warriors, and like there you can see the frame rate really doesn't like that. So yeah, I hope they can polish up the performance a little bit, but even then, I still don't think it's too bad. But I also have not tried it in co-op mode, which I hear is pretty poor. Beyond that, yeah, it's just Hyrule Warriors, but I think it fits. The gameplay tweaks that incorporate elements of Breath of the Wild, including the runes, definitely make it feel very unique from the original, and like a nice hybrid of both gameplay styles. Yeah, things like that don't look good, but since you're not controlling that, I don't even find it to be that big of a deal. The other big concern people have is actually the opening cutscene, which did not play because I've already played this mission. So, there are elements of the story that are concerning to people, and I'm going to leave it kind of vague, just for those avoiding spoilers outright. There are a few story elements that people are like, I don't know how to feel about this because it could be really cool, or it could take away from some of the story of the original game. So that was the Flurry Rush. I find the dodge timing is really awkward, and I feel like some of that actually is because of the frame rate. It does feel like dodging is more precise in this game than in actual Breath of the Wild, or maybe it's just because I'm more used to that. So this is one of the most popular characters at the moment, a little guardian companion for Link. I might actually skip this cutscene just to kind of move on, but there it is. At this point also, we meet Impa, who is playable later on in this mission, and is honestly really cool. Each character has a unique move mapped to ZR, so Link's is the bow and arrow, like so. There is gyro aiming, but it actually feels really stiff. It's definitely not ideal, but it does work, and it can be disabled if it's really annoying. But yeah, it just feels a little bit stiff compared to other games, specifically Breath of the Wild and even like Splatoon and other games that have gyro aiming from Nintendo. But yeah, a lot of cool things in this demo that to me outweigh the really rocky performance, to be honest. Like that. That's really cool, being able to actually destroy structures like that and find treasures similar to the little grottos in the original. There are Koroks as well. I've only found a couple of them. I haven't really gone out and looked for Koroks, mind you, but I assume there are quite a few. Unlike the Skulltulas from Hyrule Warriors, they seem to be obtainable at any time and not tied to defeating certain amounts of enemies or meeting other requirements. But yeah, the basic gameplay is largely unchanged. A lot of it comes down to capturing little key points like this by defeating the boss of this keep, basically, and then capturing it for your side, basically. Other objectives include defeating bosses, of course, and yeah, it's kind of a simple formula, but I think it actually fits this series well. I know Warriors games really aren't for everyone because of how button mashy they can be, but I've only played a few, and I've actually enjoyed pretty much all of the ones I have played, even though that's a very, very small number. That special didn't lag as badly. I think it's because this environment is less detailed, so it didn't have as many complications with actually running that animation. Zelda's special is one of the laggiest I've seen. It is really bad, but again, it's only a special move animation, so it's not that critical to actual gameplay. It's mostly the parry timing and the perfect dodge timing that I feel like can be a little bit rough, depending on the frame rate. That was way too early. So yeah, I still think it's worth trying if you like Breath of the Wild and didn't really like the original Hyrule Warriors just because of some of the additions to the gameplay. I also think it's worth playing if you like both, obviously, but as someone who does like both Hyrule Warriors and Breath of the Wild, this is a really fun time, and I am looking forward to trying the full game when it releases soon. But again, it would be nice if they're able to iron out the performance problems by then, or post-launch. So now we have the option to swap characters. You can have up to 3 characters at a time in specific missions. So let's switch over to Impa, who controls really interestingly. So her special move involves these little symbols that she can absorb, and that allows her to basically create clones of herself, so it pays to absorb a lot of these symbols, and basically this also powers up Impa's special moves as well. So she's actually really fun to play. One thing I actually really like is how each character plays radically differently from their Hyrule Warriors counterparts. So they fit the Breath of the Wild universe style more so than their Hyrule Warriors style. For example, Zelda entirely uses runes for her attacks, so she plays very differently than the other 2 characters, and even Zelda in previous incarnations. I actually don't really like Zelda's playstyle. I actually prefer her Hyrule Warriors moveset because it's a lot faster. But Impa is actually really fun to play as, and actually kind of controls more like Sheik, I would say, from Hyrule Warriors. I'm not really using special attacks very much like other combos. I'm mostly just mashing one button, which is kind of the issue with Warriors games to begin with, is how button mashy they are. There are difficulty selections, so I'm playing on normal for this, but it can go up to like a harder difficulty. In past games, the difficulty could actually be really challenging, so I'm curious to see how this holds up. By the way, there are also various elemental rods as well, and food that you can eat to restore health. So yeah, it's very, very close to Breath of the Wild, just with a different twist, basically. That fits because of the war setting of the time period that this takes place in. So yeah, I'm still really excited for the game, despite the performance, mostly because I want to see how the character interactions are. Quite frankly, Breath of the Wild did not have much in the way of character interactions, so I'm really looking forward to seeing the characters interact more and seeing more development. Even though it's a prequel and we obviously have a general idea of how this game must end because of how Breath of the Wild is, I still think there's potential. Recently I finished Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna the Golden Country, which is a prequel to the main game Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and frankly, if a prequel is done right, it can still be really impactful, so it gives me hope that this game will be able to expand on the original game's characters enough to make the moments in the base game much more impactful. Even though we already know the basic outcome, there's still potential for cool moments, and thus I'm still really excited. And even though some of the plot direction stuff seems kind of odd so far based on the story in the demo, it's still generally it could still be really interesting depending on how they go about it, depending on how much certain twists affect the timeline, basically, again without going too deep into the story. So yeah, if you're on the fence as someone who likes Breath of the Wild, I would still recommend trying out the demo, keeping in mind that the performance definitely is not optimal, but I think they could improve it by launch, and post-launch as well. We also don't know how many characters are going to be playable. Obviously there are data mines of the demo, but that doesn't necessarily mean every character that was data mined will be playable. But there are some interesting interesting possibilities. For example, I think in the last trailer, the Divine Beasts were revealed to be playable, which I almost think is something that they shouldn't have revealed. I almost think sometimes lately, they've been showing too much in trailers, so I haven't even seen the latest trailer. I'm just going off of what people are saying, because everyone was really hyped about playable Divine Beasts, but I haven't really even seen that in action, because I haven't seen the trailer in full yet. That's a pinwheel. So yeah, there are Koroks. Oh joy, that can't possibly be a completionist nightmare. So yeah, I still like the Koroks actually. I think they're a cool idea, I just don't recommend getting every one. It's similar to the moons in Mario Odyssey, where it's like, I like having the variety, but I don't recommend actually collecting everything. So yeah. We could swap over to Link. He is higher level than Impa, but it's just kind of nice actually not playing as Link for a change, to be honest. These two Moblins are standing really close together, so this should be a good opportunity to attack both of them, like so. But yeah, the second mission does run a lot more smoothly. Frankly, this run has actually not been that bad. Like, the first time I played the demo, it lagged pretty badly. This time doesn't feel as laggy for some reason, and I genuinely don't know why. But it does feel a little bit smoother this time, and I think that's just kind of a luck thing. But hey, I'll take it. It is definitely a lot more fun when it's not completely chugging. And since progress carries over, I guess I'll be over-leveled by the time I actually play the final game, because the next mission I think was listed at level 5, and I'm level 12 with Impa and Link, so that'll be fun. I do like how lately Nintendo's been doing a lot of demos that have progress transfers, so you don't have to restart from the very beginning of the game when you play the full thing. Just a nice little option, but I might restart anyway just to avoid being over-leveled. But that should be the end of the first mission. So yeah, overall pretty enjoyable. Definitely some room for improvement, but I'm still really excited for the game. And by the time this video goes out, it'll actually only be a couple days away. I'm not sure if I'll ever do a full Let's Play of this or Breath of the Wild, because of how daunting it is to do a playthrough of Breath of the Wild because of how big it is, but at some point, maybe. I'd also like to do a playthrough of the original Hyrule Warriors, maybe just the story mode and not adventure mode because of how big that mode is. But with that being said, I still think it's worth trying out the demo, just to see if you like this style, or if you can adjust to this style, because it is similar to Breath of the Wild, but also very different at the same time. But in any case, thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join me next time for next month's discussion.